Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Program Officer at the National Science Foundation. Prior to joining NSF, Henry managed seed and early stage investment programs for TEDCO for 12 years, including Technology Commercialization Fund, which is a flagship seed funding program for technology-based companies in Maryland. He has done research as well in the past, mostly in the field of immunology. And then Dr. Jane Scott, oops, I went a little out of order, but Dr. Kristen Huntley, who is the addiction medicine team leader in the Center for the Clinical Trials Network of NIH National Institute on Drug Abuse. She also serves as a scientific officer for multi-site clinical research on substance use disorders and provides leadership for selected projects conducted through the NIDA CCTN Dissemination Initiative, and is the Institute's contact for research in emergency medicine settings. And prior to working at NIH, Dr. Huntley was on the faculty at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine and is a practicing clinical psychologist.
Non-practicing.
Oh, and was, sorry. And Dr. Jane Scott is the director of the Office of Research Training and Career Development of the Division of Cardiovascular Sciences in the NIH National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. And she is the NHLBI Program Officer for the original K-12 program in emergency care research and the Trans NIH K-12 program in emergency care research. Both programs are designed to train NIH competitive clinical investigators. Prior to her work at NHLBI, she served as an Associate Director of Clinical Research at Tufts, Director of the Office of Research at the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center, and started her career as an emergency department nurse at Johns Hopkins. And then finally, we have Dr. Jeremy Brown, who is the Director of the Office of Emergency Care Research of the NIH's National Institute on Neurologic Disorders. He leads efforts to coordinate emergency care research opportunities across NIH. And additionally, Dr. Brown is the primary contact for the NINDS exploratory and efficacy funding opportunity announcements and serves as NIH's representative in government-wide efforts to improve emergency care throughout the country. And prior to joining NIH, he served as research director in the George Washington University Department of Emergency Medicine, where he founded an HIV screening program and received 3 NIH grants focused on renal polyp therapies. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Henry.
All right, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Good to be sitting in front of a 3D audience. This is my first in-person panel in about 2.5 years now, so I'm slowly getting into it, and I'm a little nervous because everyone's wearing a mask, and I don't know if I should be wearing a mask or not.
Exactly.
But I'll go through, and my voice is generally pretty loud. We have a phone system at NSF that detects the decibel level, and it always tells me, consider lowering your voice. So if you can't hear me, just let me know. All right, NSF, as some of you may know, is primarily a funding agency. So we don't do any internal research. Everything that we do is review proposals, we fund projects. So about 94% of our money will go to funding research, education, and other related fields. And I'm not going to go through all the numbers here, but some of the important figures. We work with our annual budget of about $8.5 billion. We review 43,000 proposals. So even before the pandemic, most of us were working, teleworking 2 to 3 times a week. So going from 2 to 3 times a week to 100% virtual really wasn't a problem for us, but it was a little unusual for us not to see each other in person. But with that, we fund about 2,000 proposals, institutions. That's mostly academic institutions. But with the program that I have, that I'm part of, Sbirs Gtr program, we fund about 400 companies that are considered startups and early stage companies. And by the way, the topic that I focus on within the Sbirs Gtr program is the biomedical technologies. So I do see a lot of companies that are related to perhaps what you do. We have about 12,000 number of awards that are made. Generally, companies that receive SBIR funding, they don't receive multiple SBIRs through NSF. So these are single companies receiving single awards. So that generally translates to about 400 companies receiving 400 awards a year. All right, the mission and vision statement, I won't go through in depth. We're technology agnostic. If you're working on something that's innovative and that has commercial potential, there is a fit somewhere within our SBIR program. But even if there is no commercial potential, as long as you're doing some innovative work, there is a fit somewhere within our SBIR, our NSF, our agency. So to promote progress of science and to advance the national health, prosperity, these are all generic. But generally, we try to promote innovation, science, and translational research is the main focus of our group. So Dr. Panchanathan, the director of NSF, he truly does believe in partnership among government, nonprofits, and for-profits, as well as academia. So with that, recently, there was a new directorate that was established, and this was a really big deal within NSF. This was the first directorate that was established in over 30 years now. And this announcement just went out in March, just a couple of months ago. So Directorate for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships is a new directorate that was established, and we'll be working across all directorates. So there are 10 directorates altogether. The SBIR STTR program used to fall under the Directorate for Engineering. Now it's taken out and put into the new TIP directorate. So the TIP programs right now, it includes the SBIR STTR program. This is a seed funding program, mostly for startups, many academic spin-offs. And we have a PFI program, Partnership for Innovation. This is an academic funding program for companies, for researchers that are working on translational research. And I-Core, which is a customer discovery exercise to help people understand the commercial potential of the technology that they're working on. And we have Convergence Accelerator, which was actually within another division, but they were all put together. This Convergence Accelerator pretty much brings together people with different backgrounds and try to accelerate commercializing technologies that may have some societal impact. So these different groups of people will come together, submit a proposal to us, and when funded, they're going to be able to do a lot of customer discovery interviews to understand how to address some specific need, societal need, and work on providing that solution. So if you are part of a university, for example, the best path forward is to probably go with the I-Core program first. It's a customer discovery exercise. You'll get to talk to a lot of different people, 100 different people in the field. Even if you're in the field, it also helps to talk to other people that may be within the same field to get their feedback, to see if this really is something that people can use. And once you get to a go decision on this, you can transition perhaps to a PFI program, which is an academic funding program. It's, the application comes into NSF, the money goes to the university to support the university lab. Once the project is done and completed and you see the potential to create a spin-off, you can create a spin-off and probably submit an SBIR or STTR program to continue on with the funding mechanism to advance your technology forward. So again, I'm with the SBIR STTR program. We're technology agnostic. We fund a lot of different innovative technologies. For the purpose of reviewing proposals, we do treat SBIR and STTR exactly the same, but the funding allocation for the two programs are different. SBIR requires companies to allocate at least 2/3 of the budget within the company to do the work. STTR requires at least 30% of the budget allocated to the university partner as a sub-awardee, and at least 40% going to the company that's applying for funding. And other than that funding allocation requirement, the requirement to be the PI and everything else about the program, and even the funding rate, they're all pretty much the same. So since I'm part of the SBIR STTR program, I'm going to talk a little more about the SBIR STTR program. Phase 1 goes up to $275,000. Those companies that complete phase 1 can move on to a phase 2 project going up to $1 million. These phase 2 companies can apply for supplements. The biggest supplement that we have is roughly $500,000 of phase 2B. But we do have other phase 2 supplements for companies, about 20% of the phase 2 award. So when it's all said and done, it'll come out to about $2 million. And our hope is that this money will be able to help de-risk the technology sufficiently to be able to perhaps raise some private investment or form a strategic partnership with somebody to advance the technology further toward commercialization. For most of the companies that are in this space, they generally, $2 million isn't enough to actually commercialize the technology. Again, our goal is to help de-risk the technology so that these companies, early stage companies, will have a chance to continue to grow. So this is a little bit of a busy slide, and it's a little deceiving. We do have 28% of life science companies that we funded in FY 2020. This is not a target percent rate. So when we say 28%, it's just because it just happens that we received more proposals under life sciences, and it came out to be about 28%. So a couple of different companies that may be pertinent to this audience. Prognosis, this is a company that really took the I-Core, or customer discovery, to heart. They already had enough money to build this technology with a drop of blood. They were able to build this device to count white blood cells. And when they went out and talked to a lot of different doctors and nurses in the emergency room, they said, hey, these people, they don't really want to run two separate tests. They just want to run the test, come back for the result later, and see how to proceed with it. So they wanted to build this device that not only gives a blood count, but also protein measurement, some things that may be specific for sepsis, for screening for sepsis. So this company applied for funding, went through phase 1 and phase 2 to build this device separately. And Aztec Diagnostics is also a sepsis-related company. They wanted to do an antibiotic susceptibility test within 1 hour. So we do get these things a lot. Some companies will come and say, we'll do this within 4 hours. And next month we get another company that says, we'll do this within 2 hours. And this company that says that they can do this within 1 hour. But I always hesitate when I give examples of these things, because people immediately think, well, maybe that's what NSF really wants to see. So again, we're technology agnostic. This is not really the type of technology that we want to see. What we want to see is whatever you do and whatever you do to build that innovative technology that may have commercial potential, we would love to be able to help support your research to advance it far enough so that perhaps you can commercialize or partner with people that can commercialize the technology to make an impact. And again, we don't have any internal research, so we don't drive these technical milestones. We always let companies know you really need to go out and talk to all these people and figure out which milestones will be the most important or most critical at this stage, and propose to work on those milestones. All right, that's all I have. Sorry, I may have gone over a little bit.
That's great, thank you.
Yep. Oh,
Thanks.
Sure.
Go to the next slide. Good afternoon. I'm Kristen Huntley. Can you hear me back in the back? Is everyone enjoying some good food in New Orleans? Oh, good, good. It's a fabulous city for that. I will be racing through these slides and just hitting the highlights to make sure we have time. I work in the Center for the Clinical Trials Network at the National Institute on Drug Abuse. This is the lead federal agency supporting research on drug use and its consequences. Our mission is to advance science on the causes and consequences of drug use and addiction, and to apply that knowledge to improve individual and public health. A couple years ago, the NIH received funding for the Helping to End Addiction Long-Term, or HEAL initiative. This is a trans-NIH effort to speed solutions to stem the opioid overdose public health crisis. $500 million per year in research funding is supporting hundreds of projects addressing opioid overdose through understanding, managing, and treating pain, and improving treatment for opioid misuse and addiction. NIDA is one of many institutes involved in the HEAL initiative. NINDS has a huge role supporting pain research. We're working together across NIH, supporting many projects. The NIDA Center for the Clinical Trials Network is supporting a number of products. NIDA in general has projects including those and others, those listed on this slide and others. I'll just highlight a couple. The Healing Communities Study is a very large project in 4 states. It's implementing evidence-based practices at the county level in over 60 counties. I want to say it's 68 counties, but I'm not sure on the exact number. This project is very exciting. They have developed many resources, including public education campaign materials, and are in the process of collecting data. The JCOIN, or Justice Community Opioid Innovation Network, is another large initiative. This is combining or partnering justice settings with community providers to improve the quality of care. And NIDA supports research and prevention and other areas such as medication development. The NIDA CTN is conducting almost 30 HEAL-supported projects. The CTN is a network of 16 nodes or main sites, and each node is affiliated with numerous clinical and research sites, including primary care settings, emergency medicine settings, HIV clinics, specialty addiction medicine centers, etc. In 2015, Gail D'Onofrio and David Filene published a landmark study which found that implementing buprenorphine treatment in the ED reduced illicit opioid use, increased engagement in treatment, and decreased use of inpatient addiction treatment services. NIDA CTN has built upon that and is conducting a number of studies in the implementation science arena, looking at implementation in low resource settings and settings in urban areas. And we're supporting a range of studies ranging from these implementation studies to looking at the value of a peer recovery support program as a bridge to treatment for overdose survivors. Just one of our big HEAL projects is the CTN 99 ED Innovation Project, and I recognize some of the at least one of the site PIs in the room. This is a study that implemented buprenorphine programs in 29 sites across the U.S., and a thank you to Dr. Brown, whose Siren network was very helpful, and a large number of the sites are Siren sites as well. This study is also comparing weekly injectable buprenorphine to a daily sublingual formulation. So the research that CTN is supporting is just a part of the research NIDA is supporting in emergency medicine settings. I'm not going to read through this list on this slide. I'll just say that NIDA is interested in research ranging from promoting safe prescribing to paramedic-administered buprenorphine. Now I'll talk about some of the funding opportunities or notices of special interest at NIDA. NIH moved to publishing notices of special interest rather than PAs, PARs, numerous RFAs. We still publish RFAs, but we indicate interest in this way. We're interested in research on prevention, research to address stigma, research in data science, and on the use of telemedicine and other remote-based platforms to address substance use disorders. We're interested in research to improve Native American health, and I'll do a call out for the NIDA CTN Dissemination Initiative Mentored Award Program. These are small awards that are administered through different professional societies, including SAEM, ASAP, AANP, AAPA, etc. And this is very important. These efforts are very important in our outreach to your community. We also encourage K-Award applications that leverage the brain trust that is the Clinical Trials Network at NIDA. We have a terrific NIDA Diversity Scholars Network. The deadline just passed in January, but keep this in mind and tell colleagues who may be interested. We participate in the NIH Mosaic Award. This is a K99 RU Award, and participate in the NIH Diversity Supplement Program. Finally, our researchers in emergency medicine have been incredibly proactive in generating resources from the research for practices and sites who may want to implement evidence-based programs in their settings. The NIDA website has materials, Yale has materials, the Embed study developed an app and will have clinical decision support available in Epic. California Bridge is a wonderful resource. ASEP has been a terrific partner. They recently launched their Pain and Addiction Care in the ED, or PACE accreditation program, similar to the geriatric accreditation program. So it's been very exciting to work with the emergency medicine community in rolling out these practices. I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Slide down. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Good. Aha. And I'm going to go right past this because hi, I'm Jane Scott. I'm with NHLBI. I'm the Director of Research, Training, and Career Development in the Division of Cardiovascular Sciences. In that position, we get the privilege of working with the research training community in cardiovascular science, and we've been involved in a lot of emergency care research programs over the past 15 years. It has been what is interesting, and I actually did not do what we're doing in emergency care research. I had a generic NHLBI discussion, but NHLBI has become really interested in emergency care research. It is investing heavily in acute care. It is investing heavily in critical care. And so there are a number of domains that it's quite interesting to see have developed in recent years. Even we've seen more and more work in sepsis because it is a precursor to ARDS. So our boundaries about what we investigate and what we go after is expanding. It's also the institute that funded ROC and is co-funding Siren at this point. So NHLBI has a lot of money that it is invested in this domain. The point of this presentation is how to come to NHLBI. This is a generic slide here that says you have to decide what you want to do. You have to decide what's the scientific methods you're going to use, and think strategically in building your research career. Usually it takes 6 to 8 years to achieve independence. Not everybody wants to be an NIH capable investigator. There are plenty of positions at less, doing research at the institutional level, partnering with researchers and participating in research. But the ones who compete for the NIH funds are usually the people with substantial background. And I think this is sort of a secret for everybody, is that most of the programs, most of the trainees that we turn out they attend multiple programs, so K, T, F, and they So they get funded by these NIH programs, and their research careers come along. Okay. Okay. If you come to NHLBI, it is important, and most institutes have this, you know, you've got a home web page, and there's a strategic vision, a strategic plan for the institute. Read that carefully, because that's how you're going to make your entree into your discussions with the program officer at the institution. You need to know some background about what they're interested, what they're not interested, and chances are what you want and what they want doesn't sound necessarily the same, but if you think about it for a while, generally you can bring the two together. So, for example, people are interested in cancer and heart disease right now, or the secondary effects of chemotherapy in women and what it does to the heart. It could go to NCI, it could come to us. If the endpoints are cardiovascular, it comes to us. If they're related to the treatment itself, it goes to the Cancer Institute. So sometimes we have overlapping goals, and it's important to just sort of know what the boundaries are for the various agencies and then work it through from there. This basically will tell you that we're interested in a lot of different domains, and this is also across from molecular work all the way up to now implementation sciences, which is how do you get the inventions out into practice so that people actually use what has been discovered to be beneficial. Okay, so with that said, it's really important, I think, for NHLBI, you know, we've got a great group of people. We've got both an extramural program, intramural program. Extramural program with training, we have representatives in the lung, blood, and sleep divisions and implementation science division. And within the cardiovascular division, we've got 7 or 8 different people who work with the cardiovascular Ks, Ts, and Fs all the time. And so we've got a breadth of understanding about the field and about getting up and running. I think what you need to know is Reporter is incredibly, do you know, everybody know Reporter? Yes. I think the cool thing about Reporter is that you have a notion for an idea. You can go in and search on those terms and see what is currently funded. As soon as a research project is funded at NIH, it becomes public knowledge in Reporter. So as you go to get your area of research going, make sure it's not already being done. And that's by checking Reporter. And then you can see who's doing what in the area and build your research off in a direction that would be unique and not duplicative. Reporter is amazing because you're able to look at research now and you know the articles will not come out for 4 more years. So use Reporter, find out what's currently funded, make the linkages to either get to know the investigators or the work or some sort of get to know the domain that they're working in, and it will just help you. So check Reporter. If you are not sure about the Institute, check on a couple of NIH Institute web pages and do a bit of homework. It's nice to know if you, for training, research training, it's easy, but for people who come in who already have the training and want to come into an institute cold, it sometimes takes a bit of work. And that came out wrong, but it just takes, you know, working, you have to find what your funding mechanism is, you have to find out who your partners are, and then you need to talk with program officers both at each institute to determine where is the best place for your grant. I highly encourage this before you submit your grant, because every so often we've got rules and grants get sent back. And it's unfortunate. And so please, please, please work with program just to save yourself time, energy, and effort. So Project Reporter. And then if you're interested in research training, this is the research training page for NIH, and then the one for NHLBI. The folks in the Office of Research Training are listed there. We have 2 new people that just joined, including Karen Nielsen and Kyun Wu, who are less than a year in our office, and they're learning things very quickly. So we're growing, and as I said, we've got 800, just DCVS has 800 training grants at any given time, and then we have another 800 or so unfunded grants that are still under the, submitted, being revised, this, that, or the other thing. So we've got a large volume of grants that we're responsible for. But it's okay, it's all good. And I guess that's it. One thing about the K-12 program, and it was just a pleasure to work with everybody. It was a program, it generated from the 2005 meeting with the NIH director by Emergency Medicine Leadership. And then there was a trans NIH working group, and George Sopko, who we all know and like and love, it was a member of that committee, and I was too. And we brought back to NHLBI, we thought that there was a role for emergency care research training. And so that's how the K-12 came about. And it came about because of a series of conversations with the emergency medicine community. And by the second program, we had partners with NIMH, and they funded a number of trainees. They're very interested in this research domain. And the National Institute of Nursing Research funded one person for 3 years. So we've got partners, we've got, it's a growing recognition that the people that are interested in this domain, it's all heart, lung, for the most part, it's heart, lung, and blood, but there we go. Jeremy. Anyway, thank you.
I'm going to stand.
Okay, I trained as an emergency physician. Is it working? I trained as an emergency physician, which means I can't sit still. So I'm going to stand up. Good afternoon, my name is Jeremy Brown. I'm here to really talk about two aspects of funding for you. The first is the office that I work in, the Office of Emergency Care Research. That is an office that sits within NINDS, the Neurological Disorders and Stroke Institute, but it is a trans NIH office, meaning it isn't just focused on neurological problems. So in that office, my job is to help people like you make connections with people who are my colleagues across NIH. If you have a good relationship with one of the project officers or program officers at an institute, you really don't need me. You don't have to involve me. It's always nice to drop a line and say hi, but you don't need me at all, and that's terrific. That's great. But if you're not quite sure what to do, I have a project. It's in this area. Who might I talk to? Who might be the right person within that great big thing called NIH, which is 27 different institutes and offices and centers? Who might I talk to? Then that's something that I can certainly help you with. And if I don't know the right person, I can find the person who knows the right person. So think of this Office of Emergency Care Research as a sort of a help with a matchmaker. The office itself does not have funding, so I don't give out any money, but I put you in contact with other people and I say, here's a really promising idea and I want you to fund it, which of course doesn't go over very well at NIH when you ask somebody else to fund a project, but that's what we try and do, and I think we've had some success. So that's the work of the Office of Emergency Care Research. At the same time, I do sit within NINDS, and I am a project officer or project scientist for a number of different neurological awards, it's actually been a very interesting learning experience for me. I was in my office one day, and the director of the division said, "Oh, I need you to take over this funding opportunity announcement." Why? Because the guy who did it just retired. So I became the point of contact for all neurological phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials, which is not quite what I trained to do, but it's okay. I've learned a lot about Parkinsonism, and, we all know, right, emergency physicians, we kind of, we do what we have to do. So within that, I am the point of contact, and that doesn't mean I see these all the way through, but my name is on the funding opportunity announcement. If you have both a phase 1 or phase 2 exploratory award idea, or indeed, I'm also the contact for the phase 3 clinical trials, the efficacy trial. So what does that mean for emergency physicians and researchers? It means that if you have an idea in the neurological space, and that can be anything from, seizures to, to TBI, to spinal cord injury, and meningitis. I mean, there's a headache, right? The list goes on and on and on. If you have an idea and it's not quite yet developed, fleshed out enough to be a clinical trial, you want to get some exploratory data, you want to get some early data, you want to look for a signal. That's a time to look at these funding opportunity announcements from the NINDS, and I'm the point of contact there, and then I can put you in contact with other people to help get you to the right person. So the NIH is a very big place, but actually at the end of the day, there are relatively few institutes that really I think most of us are going to apply to. I mean, the biggest funders of emergency care research are Jane's Institute, the NHLBI, which funds about $140 million a year, plus minus, on emergency care research. Then the institute that I sit at, the Neurological Disorders and Stroke Institute, that funds around $80 million plus minus. And between those two institutes, that's about 3/4 of all the money that goes on emergency care research. But the NIDA is about around the fourth, with about 60 to 80 million dollars of emergency care research. The other big player is the National Institute on Aging. But we heard, I was in a session earlier today where we heard that the National Institute on Dental and Craniofacial Disorders is funding an emergency physician to do some really important work looking at dental pain and the use of resources and so on. So think big, and one of the ways that you can think about where you want to land is to Google something called a Notice of Special Interest in Emergency Care Research. This is what I'm going to leave you with. The Notice of Special Interest is a way of us within NIH telling you and the outside community what it is that we want to get. Of course, you can just come along with your ideas, but this Notice of Special Interest is a list of probably 8 or 10 different institutes telling you what they're interested in emergency care research. So you might have the NICHD, the Child Health Institute, or the National Institute on Minority Health. What are they interested in the intersection of their portfolio in emergency care? So if you're not quite sure which institute you might start looking at, or whether indeed your project might have a home, start off with that Notice of Special Interest. It's going to expire in September, but it doesn't matter really. It's just the idea that you should know who's out there and who you can talk to. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be at the 2 o'clock session, but I am very happy to talk with people both here and also, we can make appointments to speak with each other very, very readily. And thank you for your time.
Thank you all so much. Right before we open up for questions, I did want to let you all know that we are doing a meet and greet here from 3:30 to 4:30. So if you have anything that you're mulling over the next hour and you want to come and meet all of our wonderful POs, please return. So anybody want to start with questions? And I will run this microphone over to you. Please just tell us your name and your institution. We have some questions that we can use to start it off. Oh, here we go. Perfect.
This is directed for Jane Scott. The K-12 program was such a wonderful program. What do you feel are the chances of it being renewed?
It has been a wonderful program. It's been enormously productive. It will not be renewed, and that is because NHLBI has a policy that the K-12 is dedicated to domains that are under-resourced, and they don't have enough scientists. So before this, we had a vascular medicine program, and then we had the K-12 in this domain. We've got one in implementation science. But it's also the reason that I've been pushing a lot of people to understand what a T32 is, and that's an institutional training program for postdocs. And you can get 3 years of training there and very easily graduate into an individual K award. And so that's what my recommendations are. 2 years in a postdoc does not do anybody any good because you don't know how to write a grant. It's that third year when you write your applications and have a really good chance. If you just take 2 years and go back to clinical or whatever you're doing, there's no writing grants, and you'll never get out of the hole you're in. Okay? I wish we could have a third program. Absolutely. It's been a joy.
Well, the notice expires. I don't know what that means. It doesn't mean the institutes suddenly say, no, we're not interested in what we just said we were interested in. The notice is kind of a new tool, so we're all trying to get used to it. I'm going to try and, I may renew it. The problem is there's, like, as I said, 12 or 15 different institutes that have to sign on. So for technical reasons, my time might be better spent elsewhere. But that document will live on the internet because you can't scrub anything from the internet, right? So go and look at it and say, oh, that's interesting to me. I didn't realize that this institute, the National Eye Institute, has a call out for emergency research, emergency care research. Oh, that's interesting, you might say. I didn't know that the Eye Institute there might be something with what I'm interested in eyes in emergency care, for example. So it's going to expire. It doesn't really mean that they're no longer interested. It means it's sort of more of a technical thing.
I had one question that I think a lot of people start off, especially as a junior investigator. When is it the right time to reach out to a PO? At what stage in your research would be appropriate to send out the initial communications?
Yeah, I can start with what's the wrong time to reach out. So the wrong time is when you have a proposal pending. Our policy does not allow us to discuss anything over the phone. So that would be the wrong time. And the right time is just any other time. Whenever you have questions about anything, you can always reach out to us. But the best way to start, though, is to submit a project pitch. Our website, our SBIR homepage actually has a specific pitch portal. So you can if you submit a project pitch through our portal, and again, the top, is this something I said? So the project pitch that you submit, you don't have to worry about the topic fit. You can just submit it through the website, and we will have a list of topics, so you will have to choose a topic. People really do want to know that they belong somewhere, so you can just go with the topic that you believe is the best fit. We'll review if we believe that it's a better fit under another topic. We'll move it around, but you'll hear back within 3 weeks as to whether you should start thinking about putting together a full proposal. And at that time, you'll know exactly which program director to reach out to if you have questions. So you can reach out to that person directly with questions. But I think the best way is to email first. Usually when I receive calls, I'm in the middle of something, I don't answer. But when people email me and say, hey, I would like to discuss this with you, I send a link to my calendar where you can just go and select your time that works best, and we can connect on the phone and discuss further.
Yeah, I think we discussed in some of the earlier sessions, the project officer is really important. And that person, depending on which institute you're at, either if you get a score that isn't quite fundable, but we might find some money at the end of the year or something, that person has to present your project, say, listen, it's a little bit outside, it's a reach, but I believe in the project, let's fund the person. Some institutes don't only go by the score or predominantly go by the score. It's all sort of what the project officer thinks. So the time to reach out to your project officer is really early. I would say have a one-page specific aims. This is what I want to do. This is my primary and my 2 secondary aims. I think it might cost approximately X. Don't worry too much about that, but it can be important to guide the further conversation. And then with that, send us an email and let's start talking. And that is a really important thing. You don't have to talk to anyone at NIH to submit a grant, but it's a really good idea to talk to someone.
I'm just going to say, with the specific aims, please also send a CV or a bio sketch, because that helps us understand where you are in the process of becoming an independent investigator. Sometimes people have, maybe this is the first time they're going to be taking research courses is in a T32 program, whereas, if you're at a K, there are different expectations. So share your research background.
And I'll just add, having the specific aims page can make the call much more productive. It will give the program officer time to review and think about it and provide more in-depth feedback to you. And you're all doing what you should be doing, attending these workshops, reaching out to people, talking. Use your mentors too. They're incredibly important.
I may be the only Canadian emergency physician in the room right now. But speak to me about the role. Oh, there's another one. Excellent. Hi. How's it going? I can only see half faces, so I don't know. But speak to me a little bit about international collaborations and how they affect, or are they welcomed? Are you interested in seeing that kind of reach within your granting agencies? If everyone could kind of speak to that, that would be amazing. Obviously, the holder of some of these grants obviously has to be, an American citizen, and I understand all that. But is it helpful to have people in Canadian sites also enrolling, for instance, et cetera, et cetera?
And I think part of the answer is, what's the mechanism that you're funding? If you have a specific international project that you would like to be involved with, look at who's funding it and find out what their rules are. And historically, I would say the last 10 or 12 years at NIH, virtually everything comes and goes through Fogarty.
Well, it really depends. So the primary grant can sometimes be totally foreign. If there's a really good, if you're studying malaria, there isn't too much malaria in the United States. So you need to do your project in Africa. So that makes sense, right? If you don't have a great reason for that, just my friend is in Canada and she's a wonderful, you have to, there's laws about this. But we have in the past used Canadian sites for all kinds of clinical trials because they can provide the right expertise. They may not be the PI, but they will certainly be co-investigators or sub-hub awards. And that's done actually very commonly, certainly in the neurological space, I imagine in other spaces as well.
With NSF, we do have a specific office that does deal with international collaboration, but that's not, I guess that's not what our group does. Our directorate, the TIP directorate, the new directorate that deals with translational research, the SBIR program requires that 100% of the money has to stay within the country. So while you establish a for-profit company and work with whoever you need to, we don't really restrict companies from working with other people in other countries. You can do that with your own internal funding perhaps, but all of our money pretty much has to stay within the country. And even with our translational research funding program, where the money goes to the university for their research, not for their international collaborator.
Institutes and centers at NIH vary. Like, I think NIAID funds a lot more research and clinical trial research internationally, whereas of course the NIDA CTN is a US network, so none of our sites are international, but NIDA does support research at international sites, just not so much clinical trials. So it depends on the institute and unit.
Whereas I would say NHLBI does a lot of studies that are US, Canada, and the rest of the world. I'm going to blank on it now, but we've done a number of hypertensive studies and cardiovascular disease studies worldwide. And it was a matter of getting, you have to justify why go to those many sites. What are you doing? What's the cost per person? What's the benefit to the science?
Thank you. Thank you all so much for taking the time to speak with us on a subject that's very mystifying to many emergency physicians. Thank you all for coming. I think we have to wrap up to let people get to their next sessions, but please return at 3:30 and get some face time and ask any remaining questions you have. Thank you.